Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Steel City Blitz Steelers Podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And this is our annual predictions, prognostications, things that are likely to go really, really wrong from what we say type show. We're happy to have you with us. We're very disappointed that our British colleague, one Ellie Finnerty, can't be here. She was supposed to be here to answer for her peanut butter whiskey thing that you may have heard on a more recent episode. But she was quite busy tonight and couldn't attend, and we're bummed. And so we're probably going to slander her numerous times over the next 45 minutes. Ben, I did want to get to you, though, real quick. You sent some pictures to us of what's going on out in your neck of the woods, and Blade Runner is the best way to describe the look in the sky out there. How close are these wildfires to where you're at?
Well,
must not be that close for cracking a beer.
They're not. Do you recall the scene from the Blade Runner sequel when he was going out into the desert and there was all that smoke and haze everywhere? It's
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah.
Basically, I always wondered what nuclear winter would look like.
Ooh.
And this is probably it. It's lowered the temperature by about 8 or 10 degrees every day from where it was supposed to be. The sun, you can't really see it, but it does brighten up the smoke that's up there above us, turns into a nice orange color. So it's a little weird. The fires are probably, I don't know, from where I work, which is much closer to where the fires are, you're probably talking about, 4 or 5 miles.
That's not a real big distance, though.
It's not a huge distance, but, we're not apparently in any imminent danger. The communities that are further south of us haven't been evacuated yet, the communities that are closer to the fires.
Right.
So apparently they think they have enough of a control of them that they're not evacuating those communities. I'm not super concerned about it. And I work in a concrete building, so I'm not real concerned about it burning down. Yeah. Although the smoke today was a concern from a health standpoint. It got so thick. It got so thick that it was literally smoky inside today. So they shut us down about 11 a.m. It's been a little weird. It's been odd, man. At 2020, what's the next thing with 2020? I never know what's going to be around the corner. This year has been so weird and so hard and so anxiety filled. Thank God football season's here.
Oh my God, I know it. It couldn't have come at a better time, quite frankly. Ian, you're not dealing with any of those type of issues in the Commonwealth, but nevertheless, how are things going for you?
Good, very good. We are excited to not only have NFL football back, but also high school football back on Friday night. Is the first games of the year.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah, it's exciting. A lot of teams are broadcasting their stuff online through various outlets. So I was just going through collecting some links to put in our Whipio Games of the Week post, which will be up tomorrow morning. So if people want to find their alma mater's game online, we'll have links for that.
Outstanding. Yeah, we get up and running next week. That since we've been reinstated, so we've got one more week to go, and then our Friday nights will be under the lights, as they say.
Michigan's been reinstated. Is that what you're saying?
They have. We got reinstated a week ago today, and our kids had kind of been practicing a couple days a week, just in hopes, kind of almost spring ball, but in the fall kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And got reinstated, and it's been kind of a crazy week. Some schools are still struggling with whether or not to play because they don't have enough kids. Kids have gone on to other sports or other things, and it's just a weird time. But I'm glad we're getting the opportunity to do it. So, all right, guys, tonight's the night. We have to give our predictions on the Pittsburgh Steelers 2020 season. Record predictions, what we think that they'll ultimately do, should any of us believe that they will make the 2020 postseason, which of course now does feature an extra team. It's 7 teams this year instead of the sixth that it had been since 1990, I think. So we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at any ongoing issues right now that the Steelers may have heading into the Giants game. We'll talk a little bit about that, and of course, kind of run through just the rest of the division and stuff, and rest of the league and everything else. So, do either of you are you dying to go first to give your prediction? Do you want me to do it? How do you want to do this?
Go ahead, Ian.
All right. Sure. What do you want me to tackle first?
Ian, I want to know where you have the Steelers finishing in terms of their overall record right now.
Oh boy. I'll say 11-5.
11-5.
I think I think they're good enough with their schedule to probably go 12-4. They always seem to find a way to lose a random game.
Yeah.
But they're definitely at least a 10-win team. I think 10. If Ben is healthy and normal, 10 wins is their floor. I really can't see them lower than. They're definitely not lower than 8 wins if Ben is healthy. But I think given the schedule, it's probably around 10. But I think they find a way to win games too. Really, the way the schedule sets up for them, the second half of the year after the bye week is relatively easy. They have a pretty tough stretch right before the bye week, but they should be able to win some of those games and build some momentum too. And really, everyone's talking about Kansas City and Baltimore, but like, what about Pittsburgh? Ben's coming back healthy. We only lost one starter on defense, who is the nose tackle. Plus, we get Stephon Tuitt back. This team is loaded at every position, and they've pretty much gone all in to win this year.
Seems like it.
So kind of just forget about the future, enjoy this year, and see what happens. And with 7 teams making the playoffs, only the number 1 seed is going to get a bye. So there's really not a distinct difference between, other than playing a home game, being a division champion versus a wild card. But if there's not fans in the stands, playing it at home doesn't necessarily have a distinguishable difference either.
No.
In terms of home field advantage with crowd noise or anything like that. So, they can absolutely go on the road and win in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think they're good enough to make a deep run. I would say this team is good enough to make the AFC Championship game. And really, at that point, anything can happen, right? We've seen, anything can happen once you get to the playoffs. I did a data analysis a couple years ago of sort of the correlation between Pro Bowl players and record. And there is a correlation between number of Pro Bowlers and regular season record, but there is zero correlation between Pro Bowlers and playoff success. So it's really interesting that the playoffs are kind of a crapshoot, and the best teams usually rise to the top. But if you think about it, the Super Bowls we've won recently, we weren't the number 1 seed.
No.
So it's in. The number 1 seeds don't always make it. So it's not
Baltimore.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Baltimore. Hey, the AFC North quarterbacks have won 13 playoff games, and Ben Roethlisberger leads the pack with 13. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so you think 11-5, 10-6. Okay.
I think, around that range is probably good. I think Baltimore probably is a little bit ahead. I don't think Baltimore's 14-2 anymore, but I'd say Baltimore might be around a 12-4 type team, just because their offense is so much harder to game plan for on a 1 week basis to try and come up with a plan to stop. You saw Tennessee have success in the playoffs, but Tennessee pretty much knew if they knew going into the playoffs, they were the 6th seed, that if they won their opening game, they were going to Baltimore. So they had a little extra time to game plan for that too, kind of knowing what their next destination was going to be. So they came up with a good plan to stop Baltimore's offense, or at least slow it down. And I think some teams may figure it out this year, but I think you need a very distinctive defensive personnel set to be able to do it.
I would agree with that, and I'll bring up Baltimore a little bit later. But first, Ben, what is your record projection for the 2020 Steelers?
12-4.
Whoa! 12-4.
I think if Ben is healthy, their floor is 10 wins if he stays healthy.
Yeah.
If Ben goes down and Rudy has to come in and be the quarterback again, you're looking at 7 wins, 8 wins. And it really is that kind of a difference. I mean, you look back at the Steelers' offense last year, the last 8 games, they scored 10 touchdowns. That's ridiculous. Your offense has got to be able to do better. You can't lose games when your defense gets 5 turnovers. You can't do that.
No.
That's ridiculous. And that's how bad the quarterback play was last year. And I hate to put it all on the quarterbacks, but that's the truth. That's the reality.
Ultimately, it was the reality.
Yeah, it was. They're an excellent team. They're loaded at defense, the Steelers. Offensively, they're not as loaded. We've got some injury issues going into the year right now. We've got some transition along the offensive line. It's going to kind of make things a little dicey for a little while. I expect some sloppy play for the first month, but I expect them to do enough in the first month to come out with a solid record and finish the year at 12-4. As Ian pointed out, after the bye, it's a pretty easy stretch. So that's where I'm at. I don't see the Ravens as necessarily being much better than 12-4. They may finish at 12-4. I have them winning the division, but it'll be that they're 12-4 and they got the tiebreaker and they edge the Steelers out, or they finish 13-3. They're not that much better than the Steelers this year. I really don't believe that.
Yeah, I'm going to go 10-6, and the only reason I'm going 10-6 is because I think they're going to go into the final week at Cleveland not really needing that game, and I think they'll be able to rest everybody, and it won't matter. So
what you're
think
saying is that Rudy will play quarterback and lose the game, huh?
Yes, I am. I think that's exactly how it plays
Garrett
out.
Will get his revenge.
Oh, for God's sakes! Well, hey, according to Garrett, when he wants to sit down for a man-to-man talk,
douchebag.
Just let it go, man.
I want to say something about that.
Go ahead to steal my thunder.
Since you brought it up, okay? Myles Garrett basically accused Mason Rudolph of being a vile, disgusting human being.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If he lied, that's a really shitty way to excuse your actions. And if it's true, then Mason Rudolph's a scumbag. How do you sit down and reconcile that? One guy is a fucking liar or the other guy's a scumbag. There's no in between there. There's no we can respect one another and have man-to-man conversation. What a load of crap. That is Garrett trying to save face, and that makes me want to not believe him even more because it's a ridiculous assertion. It's ridiculous.
I'm with you. I thought the exact same thing when I saw that article come out. I thought the exact same thing. This isn't the way it can go based on what Myles Garrett has said. So, but yeah, we'll definitely be addressing that come Browns week. But yeah, I think 10-6, 11-5. I agree with you guys. I think as long as Ben is healthy, there's definitely a floor there of about 10. As Ian pointed out, the Steelers always seem to find a way to drop a game that they probably should win, and then they probably win a game or two that they maybe look like they're losing. My biggest question mark is Ben, what you alluded to. You're going to have a new tackle in Zach Banner at right tackle. David DeCastro is not anywhere near 100%. In fact, right now it looks like he may not even go in week 1. That's a big concern for me. But, still, I think there's enough there. They'll be okay, and they'll be able to get, to the postseason. Now, both of you kind of alluded to a little bit. In Ian, just to be clear, you have Baltimore winning the division?
Yes.
Okay. I think Baltimore does also. I think they're going to be right around that 13-3 mark. I think it's just too tall an order for the Steelers to get to. Not that they can't.
That and Baltimore has an even easier schedule than Pittsburgh.
They do. Easiest in the league. Absolutely. Yeah. And we, trust me, preface, of course, those things change game by game as the season begins. We all know that. But as it is on paper right now, they have the easiest schedule. So that's what I'm looking at. And I just think that's where we are with the Steelers in that regard. Now, Ian, as far as once they get in the playoffs, you kind of thought, a run to the AFC title game is possible. I mean, what has to happen, though? And I'm going to kind of throw a caveat in there. Everything returns to normal. Fans are allowed back to games. Just to throw that out there. Where do you see the Steelers? What do you see them doing in the postseason should they get there?
I would say beat the AFC East champion Bills in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And then
that would be in Buffalo.
Yes. Then maybe go to Baltimore, beat them, and then beat Kansas City in the AFC title game.
Wow, that is a tall order. Whoa. Ben, what's your road look like if you think they get that far?
I have them beating the Texans in the first round, and then beating the Chiefs in the second round, and then going to Baltimore and winning the AFC Championship in the third round. Yeah, I have them going all the way through.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, not quite getting it done this year.
Right. And you try to be realistic. Obviously, it's very difficult to take off black and gold colored lenses. At least it is for me at times. I think they'll get through that first round game, and I've kind of envisioned also the Texans, or maybe even the Titans possibly. But then I struggle with them either going into Baltimore or into Kansas City and winning. They've done it before. But it just right now, I don't know. But yeah, that's what they're going to ultimately have to do in order to reach the Super Bowl. Quick trip here, guys, through some of the other divisions. I mean, who did you have as your division winners, Ian, in the AFC?
I had Buffalo, Baltimore. I had a tough time with the South. I ultimately went with Tennessee because I think they improved a little bit from last year, over Houston, who I think got a little worse from last year. And if you recall, that was a pretty close division last year between Houston, Tennessee, and Indianapolis. So I think Indy got better too, but I still don't believe in them. So I went with Tennessee to win the division. But obviously, I mean, that's kind of a big caveat that Ryan Tannehill plays more the way he did last year and doesn't revert to Miami Dolphins Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
And that Derrick Henry is able to stay healthy for them too. And then obviously Kansas City in the West, with the injuries that Denver just had. I thought Denver was kind of the only team that could potentially challenge them. But with the injuries Denver had, losing Von Miller for the season, Cortland Sutton looks like he might miss a few games. Mm-hmm. It's going to be another, Denver will be lucky to get to 7-9 again this year.
Yeah, I agree. I believe my division winners were the exact same, so I really don't need to say anything more about it. Ben, what did you have?
I have Ravens winning the AFC North. I have the Chiefs winning the AFC West. I have the Bills winning the AFC East, and I have the Texans winning the AFC South.
Yep.
With the Steelers, the Titans, and some shitty AFC team that finishes 8-8 and doesn't deserve to be an AFC playoff team.
Yeah.
Being the 7th seed, and that'll probably be the Pats. That's my guess. Belichick will do just enough to keep his streak alive and finish 8-8.
I can see it. I think, whether or not Cam Newton, I don't know that I buy all this stuff with him and Cam Newton getting along like two peas in a pod. I think as soon as something goes south there, then I think Belichick's got a problem on his hands. I mean, some of the press conferences I've seen Cam Newton have after losses, you just wonder. But that's just a gut feeling there. So I'm pretty much right on par with you guys in terms of the AFC. And then Ian in the NFC. And, of course, the Steelers play the NFC East this year. But who are your division winners and playoff teams, Ian, in the NFC?
So with the NFC East, it's really down between Dallas and Philadelphia. The Washington team is in shambles and directionless.
Chase Young.
Chase Young, and maybe Alex Smith comes back, which will be a nice story. And
Great story. Yeah.
If he comes back, he may be the only one that could challenge Ben Roethlisberger for the comeback player of the year award. But the Giants are still stuck in a mentality that it's like 1991 and they need to run the ball and stock up on big hulking defensive linemen to be able to win. Daniel Jones was better than Eli Manning, but he's still not great. So really it's down to the Eagles and Cowboys, and those are two teams that just can't seem to get out of their own way. Like on paper, they look like they should be really good teams, but for some reason always wind up around like 9-7, 8-8 because they just find ways to lose games. Yeah. Dallas on offense looks like they should be borderline unstoppable, and there at times in games they do, and then they just go into a shell for the whole second half and forget how to play football and wind up losing games. So I took the Cowboys to win because I have a little more faith in their ability to survive injuries on offense. Philly, Carson Wentz, I really liked him coming out of North Dakota State, but he's gotten injured a lot, and they have some big question marks at receiver, whereas Dallas has a pretty deep stable of receivers and a pretty decent backup in Pollard, who actually situationally was a pretty good backup to Elliott last year. So I think Dallas just has more depth offensively. Defensively, they're both pretty bad. So I don't see either team, pushing for the number one seed there, but I took Dallas by a nose. I took Green Bay to repeat in the North. I know a lot of people are picking Minnesota as kind of a trendy pick there. But I think Aaron Rodgers is still good enough to win a few games for his team. And Green Bay's really good on defense too, and they are. I think that makes a difference. I took the Saints in the South. They're still the class of the division, and really, I mean, you want to talk about a team that has to go all in to win this year. I mean, if you talk about the Steelers being in trouble with the salary cap next year, the Saints are screwed. I mean, the Saints were looking at being potentially $50 million over a cap of $200 million. If the cap goes down to 175, they're looking at being $75 million over the cap. So they really have to go all in to win this year. And then I took Seattle in the West. San Francisco is still good, but I think that curse of losing the Super Bowl kind of catches up with them a little bit. And San Francisco is also an injury or two away from being a 4-12 team once again, like they were when Garoppolo got injured 2 years ago. So I took Dallas, Green Bay, New Orleans, and Seattle as my division champs, and then as my wild cards, Minnesota, Tampa, and San Francisco. Just because I think with 7 wildcard teams, San Francisco is probably good enough to at least win 8 games as long as Garoppolo is healthy. And Tampa reminds me a lot of that Philadelphia Eagles team whenever they signed Mike Vick and all those guys and called themselves the dream team and then went 8-8. But this year, given that 7 teams make the playoffs, 8, 9-7 is probably good enough to make it. And Carolina's not going to be very good, and Atlanta still has a defense that looks like the Maginot line. So it's I can see Tampa getting to 8 or 9 wins.
Okay. Ben, what do you got? NFC.
I have the Seahawks as the 1 seed, which I really don't like, but I don't think they have a very tough schedule.
Yeah.
I have the Saints as a 2 seed, Packers as the 3 seed, the Eagles winning the NFC East.
Wow.
Honestly, that's a coin flip.
It is. It was for me.
There's nobody that good in that division. That it's a bunch of teams that are going to finish 8-8 and close to that or close to it. Except for Washington, they're probably going to win 4 games, maybe 5.
Yeah.
I have the Tom Brady Buccaneers as the 5 seed. I think they'll win 9 or 10 games. The Vikings coming in at the 6th seed, and then some 8-8 NFC team that doesn't deserve to be a playoff team. Yeah, likely the Cowboys. They always, they flirt with that 8-8 record every year. They like to go perfect 500 ever since like '97. So, why not just continue that trend?
Yeah. And just real quick, Ben, what's your Super Bowl matchup then? What is your pick there for the Super Bowl?
The conference championships, we were going to cover those.
Yeah.
I have the Steelers beating the Ravens in Ratland.
Okay.
In the city of Ratland.
Which would be glorious.
It would be. It would be fantastic. And I have the Saints beating the Seahawks.
Wow. Okay.
In the Super Bowl, I have the Saints and the Steelers, and I have the Saints winning.
Wow.
Yes. And then Ben, meaning me, I go ahead and I prepare for ritual seppuku after the game.
With a Frisbee?
No.
With a Frisbee.
That was an old internet joke.
What did you have?
I feel like since I'm going after Ben here, I feel like I'm copying his homework. But I had Pittsburgh over Kansas City in the AFC Championship.
Okay.
New Orleans over Seattle in the NFC Championship, and then Pittsburgh over New Orleans in the Super Bowl because I just can't pick against the Steelers.
That's a homer pick right there, buddy.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Well,
but
yeah,
I can't pick against them.
I get it.
Maggie's awake.
I have Kansas City over Baltimore in the AFC title game. I have, I believe, Seattle over New Orleans in the NFC, and then I think I have Kansas City beating Seattle in the Super Bowl. But, as these things go, who knows? All it takes is one injury, and the whole thing just completely changes and gets discombobulated, and who knows? But I just do want to remind everybody you're listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. They are serving Broward and the Southern Palm Beach counties. Whether it's commercial, residential, multifamily, or condos, contact Deck Roofing Incorporated by visiting deckroofing.com. I want to switch over to the obvious, which is the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers have a game this coming Monday night. It's going to be a long weekend, Steelers fans. I'm just telling you right now, I can already see the 8 billion tweets. How long is this day going to be? Especially on Sunday. And then again on Monday, it's going to be a long weekend. Okay. It just is, but find something to do. That's all I can tell you. Ben, we were talking a little bit today and before the show started. The Steelers got some injury concerns here. Go ahead and kind of address the biggest one right now.
Well, David DeCastro apparently isn't going to play. He's got a knee injury that he's nursing, and he's not. It doesn't sound like he's going to be available this week.
Right.
So it is what it is. As far as Deontay Johnson goes, it doesn't sound like his foot injury is all that serious.
No.
It was more. He was held out more as a precaution, as I understand it today. So I'm not real concerned about that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what I'm hearing, and I've read a couple of the beats that seem to be echoing that same sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not real worried about it at this point. But you've also got transition at the right tackle spot where you've got Zach Banner starting. I don't want to call it a new position because he's played tackle before, but
right.
He's a new starter there, and he's playing next to a player he's never played next to in Stefan Wisniewski, who's apparently going to start at right guard this week. So, it's a little bit of a concern. On defense, they're solid. I mean, they're healthy. Everything looks good. They've got a guy back there in Cameron Sutton that can back apparently any position up, is what they're saying.
Right.
If anyone happens to go down, I can't imagine they would drop him in as strong safety, but apparently he knows how to play it if they needed to. So, it's all good. Yeah, I'm not super concerned about it, especially even if Deontay can't go, the dynamic ability of the pass catching tight ends that they have on that team right now is going to more than make up for that. So I'm just not super concerned about that aspect of it. That and the Giants defense is awful. I know that the Giants offense is now coordinated by Jason Garrett, and it's complicated, and it'll be a bit of a challenge for the Steelers D, which is fine from my standpoint because it's in their early season game.
Yeah,
it'll be an opportunity for them to work out some kinks. But the Giants' defense is not good, and it'll give Ben an opportunity to shake off some rust. I think Ben's going to be rusty for 2 or 3 games.
I do too.
And it'll give him an opportunity to go against a not real good defense and maybe, knock some of that rust off. So I'm pretty excited about that aspect of it. I am not going to be super disappointed if the Steelers aren't real crisp, week 1, week 2, week 3. I'm not really going to worry about it too much.
No, I don't think any of us should be overly, what do I want to say? No, we shouldn't really expect that anyway. And, I think the Chiefs and the Texans, what I've seen of that game, both teams look okay. But, there's going to be.
The Chiefs did not look good early on. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, well, they're certainly not themselves. But
they're not firing on all cylinders yet. Let's
no. And I'll say this too about the right side of the offensive line for the Steelers. Stefan Wisniewski is a pretty darn good guy to have there. If A, you've got to replace David DeCastro, but B, he also will hopefully be able to settle Zach Banner a little bit too. He's a veteran. The guy's won multiple Super Bowls. Knows what he's doing. I mean, there could be far worse guys in that position. So while I am concerned, I'm not overly concerned just yet with that. I know Randy Fichtner said today that they fully expect to use Chase Claypool more than they expected. They thought he came in great shape. His ability to absorb things mentally has been, very, very good. So I don't know what that means in terms of snap counts, but I think it's great that we're going to get a look at him. But, as far as the Giants, Ian, what concerns you about the New York Football Giants?
I would say Daniel Jones' ability to make plays with his feet sort of outside the structure of the offense that the Steelers have never really defended running quarterbacks very well. And Jones isn't a running quarterback in the Lamar Jackson, designed runs. He's more of a running quarterback in the Josh Allen style of, when something breaks down, he's going to, his eyes come down and he's going to look to run. And you can get sacks that way, similar to Russell Wilson in some senses too. He's not nearly as good as Russell Wilson, but he will scramble and he will pick up some yards. And especially if we're playing man defense, the interior rush linemen really have to stay true to their rush lanes in order to contain Jones's scrambling ability. And Saquon Barkley, he got a little bit of a bad rap coming out of Penn State because a lot of the online Twitter folks don't think running backs are worth much at all. There's some discrepancy there, but I will say he's a guy who is he will have kind of in the Fast Willie Parker mode of, a bunch of 2-yard carries and then a 60-yard touchdown. But that 60-yard touchdown can come anytime during the game. So, he is capable of taking it to the house anytime he touches the ball. So, wrapping up and getting him on the ground when you get the chance is the big thing. Their defense is terrible. So what I'll say there is the Steelers have to limit their mistakes. 2 years ago, which was Ben's last healthy season, he led the league with 16 interceptions. Granted, some of those came from trying to force the ball to Antonio Brown, but nevertheless, he led the league with 16 interceptions. Last year, Deontay Johnson fumbled 5 times, which is a little bit concerning. People harp all over Juju. Juju only fumbled once last year. Granted, it was at a huge moment in the game, but that was also a really good play by Marlon Humphrey too. If you look back at that Ravens game from last year, Humphrey tried to make that same tomahawk chop swat on Juju earlier in the game, and he missed, and Juju took it for a touchdown because he didn't wrap him up. He did the same thing in overtime. He hit the ball that time, and the ball came out. So, it's a risk reward kind of play. But that was Juju's only fumble. Same with James Conner. Conner only had 1 fumble last year. Granted, it was against San Francisco at a really unfortunate time in the game. So, ball security and situational turnovers are things that can really be killers for this team. If they take good care of the ball offensively,
Yeah.
I have a really hard time seeing them lose this game. If they don't turn the ball over, I have a hard time seeing them lose.
Yeah, I'm with you. Take care of the football and play just sound defense. Doesn't have to be great defense. Just play sound defense, and I think they should come away with a W. Ben,
one more thing
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to mention that worries me is that Craig Ralstad is the official for the game.
The
last time we saw him was in New Orleans in 2018. So
and what
Giants,
happened to that game, Ian? But just go ahead.
There was arguably one of the worst pass interference no calls, which became later hilarious when the Saints missed going to the Super Bowl because of a non-called pass interference. When there was a horrendous one called on us earlier in the season. So that being said,
karma.
Yes. Something that concerns me, though, is that the Giants have two very young and very bad offensive tackles. And in a normal game, you would expect TJ Watt and Bud Dupree to just be able to feast on their offense. So what I fully expect to have happen is there to be a lot of holding, and basically that the Giants are going to dare the refs to call holding penalties on them every play. So don't be shocked if Watt and Dupree don't have, a massive game, because they're probably going to get held pretty much every play, and it's going to be on the refs to actually throw the flag.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The officiating is going to be under the microscope big time, as it always is, but especially in that situation. Ben, what do you think Mike Tomlin does with James Conner this week? I mean, he basically called him our bell cow this week, which almost makes me wonder if he wasn't just put that out there, because I think Benny Snell's going to see a few carries, and I think Anthony McFarland, the rookie, is going to get a couple touches too. What do you expect to see out of the running game?
I expect that Connor will get the bulk of the carries, and if he gets hot, he will carry the ball well into a game, even if it's already decided. That's just Tomlin's mantra.
It always has been. Yep.
And maybe this year will be different. He'll actually do what he should do and run the guy who can bash the defense late in the game and give the ball to Benny Snell late.
Yeah.
But I'm not expecting anything out of the ordinary. There's a lot of talk about jet sweeps and running more motion and trying to get the defense to commit to coverage schemes. But I think that, listen, if the Steelers run motion 4 times a game this year, that'll be 100% more than they ran it last year. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm only slightly exaggerating when I say that. I'm not kidding. If the Steelers run motion and misdirection 4 or 5 times a game this season, that'll be 100% more often than they ran it last year. So, and in 2018, they ran it quite a bit. Ben moved guys around all the damn time because he's Ben and he could, where last year they couldn't do it. So I'm not going to credit anyone with that necessarily. I'm not going to say it's smart. It's not until I see what the results are. But I would expect a little bit of that. And maybe running the ball between the tackles a little more this year. More gap tackling in some inside zone rather than just trying to do what they did last year, which was garbage.
Yeah. I tend to think that's a big reason why they went with Banner. I think they want to just get behind him and let him just plow people.
And Banner's not an outstanding run blocker. He's pretty good. He's not outstanding.
Right. I think he's just, He's
not David DeCastro. Let me put it that way.
Oh, no. We just have a couple minutes left here, guys. I'm gonna give you a couple of over-unders, and you just give me a quick answer back. And my first one is over-under. And Ian, I'll go to you first. Over-under Ben Roethlisberger touchdowns. I'm gonna put it at 26.
Over.
Ben. Over-under. Ben Roethlisberger touchdowns at 26.
26. I'm going to say over, but not by much.
Okay. Chase Claypool, rookie wide receiver. Ian, I'm going to put his touchdowns over-under at 4.
Ooh. Over, but not by much.
Okay, over but not by much. Ben, Chase Claypool, over-under at 4.
Yeah, I already projected him at 5. That's basically that's one touchdown a month plus one more sprinkled in there someplace. And he's going to be a really good red zone threat, so I see it.
Okay, no, fair enough. Let's go, Ian, over to the defensive side of the ball. TJ Watt, over-under sacks, 16.
Oh, man.
Oh,
I was hoping you'd say 15.
Me too.
16 is tough, man.
Yeah.
I think under, but not by much, but
Not
under
by much.
slightly. I had him around 15 and a half.
Okay, Ben, same to you. TJ Watt, over-under 16.
I think that TJ's brother, JJ, saying to him this week when TJ wins 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, I'll consider him a peer, was a slight designed to motivate his brother, and I have a feeling that it worked, and I see him being over that mark this year.
Okay, all right. I've got one more for you guys, and then we'll get on out of here. Juju Smith-Schuster, over-under, yards receiving, 1,000. Ian?
Over.
Ben?
Over.
Okay. That's it. You've heard it. You've heard it all here, right here, Steeler Nation. So enjoy the game this coming Monday night, and we will have a follow-up later that week, and be sure to cover all those things. Make sure you check out SteelCityBlitz.com and at Steel City Blitz, or excuse me, at SC Blitz on Twitter. And don't forget, high school football fans, make sure you check out Ian's coverage of Whippeal High School football there as well. And I think that is it, gentlemen. Enjoy the NFL season week 1. I can't believe it's here, but I'm very, very excited for it, considering this craptastic 2020 year that we've been through. So for our great sponsor, deckroofing.com, this is Steel Dad signing off on the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast. And hey, go Steelers.
Ravens suck.